All right, I'm going to be talking about courage and fear. Fear is something that's popped up in the collective consciousness recently, due to this very big uh, pandemic. I guess I can use that word for sure. Like, because I don't want to use the word that get taken off the channel. But we're currently in quarantine, or most of us are. For me, life hasn't changed much except for my son's home. So for me, things still feel pretty normal at home. But I know for a lot of people it's not, and that's creating a lot of fear. And then when other people are afraid, it spreads to others. And I heard this the other day. Like, honestly, fear is the real pandemic, because it's so easy to spread. It's so easy. I mean, you can do it on the street. It's like the idea of, so you walk along the street and someone's staring up at something, and so you look too, and it's not, and it's kind of out of an innate what's going on. It's that inkling of fear that's triggered, and it's so easily passed between each other, because fear is something that's um, it's an emotion. It's one of the primary emotions that transfer easily among humans. So, because it creates a internal physical response. Um, so like that's what we really need to be. That's what I've just really been thinking about recently, and considering that I've faced a lot of my own fears, my own personal fears at least internally, and I've learned how to be brave in the face of my fears, and it really, learning to be brave has done so much more in improving most aspects of my life. So, like, including health wise, but health wise and relationship wise. But, it still exists for me, because there's certain things I'm still afraid of. One of those things is actually like, of course, public speaking is one of those things, but it's not so much public speaking as my fear. I have a fear of attention. It's weird. I think it's like I don't want my channel to get too big kind of fear. uh, or like to be noticed by someone too big. That's just an internal personal fear, because I don't know if I could handle that kind of pressure. But I think that's a reasonable fear to have when you're doing this kind of thing, at least. But even though I'm doing it with the intention to share my ideas out there, to get out there, and I want to be well known, but I don't want to be well known for like the wrong thing. I guess that's the thing. Um, but but even then, the courage is in the fact that I know what my intentions are. You know, so no other fear can really get in the way of that, and it's much more important that I do what's right for me instead of being afraid to do it. Um, that's what I have just learned in this whole like saga of the last 5 years. Like, fear can keep you from so much, and it's kept me from starting this channel in the first place. And I had to get triggered by something else to really like kickstart me into it. A horrific event, Etika's loss, and I I realized I couldn't be afraid anymore, because if like the intense fear that I had before I started has pretty much dissipated in this idea, in the bigger scheme of things, of knowing that I'm being brave enough to put myself out here and share what I'm thinking, what I'm really thinking, and how I really sound and how I really look. Because also being like a woman, a black woman specifically, like there's this kind of a not that I'm afraid of how people will view me, but I don't know. I guess the attention that I would get from it, and it all ties into the same thing of like but like that subconscious feeling um, about I need to put emotional about just how people will perceive what I'm talking about and just how their own internal biases might uh, create some other idea in their head that I'm not intending for, and I guess I'm afraid of being misunderstood, and I don't want my appearance in any kind of way to affect the way you understand my words. I hope I'm speaking clearly enough. I took speech classes when I was a kid, so I hope I'm still articulate and eloquent. Maybe not as much as before because I spend too much time at home, but I think I still am. I mean, it's pretty clear. But anyway, but being not afraid of that is so, it gives you that sense of like making yourself naked in front of others, like bearing your naked mind in front of others, because we have a fear of our social interactions, of being judged by each other, which we shouldn't be doing so harshly, at least. I mean, we shouldn't be judging each other, but rather we should be, just having discussions with each other, and it will work itself out in the discussion instead of being defensive about something, particularly about anything that's constructive, especially. But we shouldn't take. I scored 1 on agreeableness, so maybe that's just my take. But we shouldn't be so quick to put someone down because their opinions don't align with our own, and that's not productive at all. That's why there's so much division in the world, and that's a whole nother story I could get into. But it's like the fear of being rejected, and being judged, and our own self-consciousness. All these fears, they keep us from being our true selves, and also it's being utilized by these media companies as well to twist our view of ourselves and how we view each other, and to spread this division and fear, because fear it drives the ratings up. People like to get afraid. That's why we watch horror movies. I don't like to watch horror movies, so I don't know about that part, but people do enjoy to feel fear, or what it would feel like. I think it's because I don't know. I think I felt some genuine fear in my life before in different ways, but I don't think I've ever been like really afraid of anything. I think I get so easily afraid of horror movies because when I read a story or watch a movie, I really get into it. So I suspend my disbelief, and I get really into the zone, and so I get into the scene. I want to get scared in the scene. If it's a good movie, it should scare you genuinely, honestly, right? But I guess you can think it's funny if you're looking at it from an outside perspective, like haha, it's just a movie. But I think it's more fun to get involved, and that's another thing about fear. Since I'm just rambling, anyways, it's like fear of being ourselves because other people look at you a certain way. I know that for me especially is huge because I'm a total weirdo, and I've been slowly putting myself out there on my blog, and it's been interesting just how it's transforming me in the process, and doing this is transforming me in the process, because it's interesting because it's like I look at other people and it's like, be fearless and post yourself, whatever, and just be yourself and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of YouTubers who aren't themselves. There's a lot of celebrities and influencers who really aren't themselves. They're being a copy of somebody else. So that doesn't really help in the narrative of getting online and being yourself and sharing who you really are. Nowadays it's just completely toxic, that's for sure. Like Vito, a YouTuber I follow, subscribe to, who's really funny and really cool just by himself. Like his stand up is really solid. He had tweeted, I should quit YouTube because I'm not a YouTuber. I was like, dude, what? Come on now. Like, that's not the reason to quit YouTube. You should quit YouTube if something better comes along. But even then, you don't really quit YouTube. It's not like, here you go, it's not a job. I mean, it is. Like, it shouldn't be a job, honestly. It shouldn't feel like a job. That's one thing for sure. I think that's true. It shouldn't feel like a job. It should just be something you like to do because this is a social media site, not a merchant site. That's like what YouTube has turned into is just horrible, honestly. But I'm getting off topic. But the narrative sort of that's been set by modern day social media tactics is driving up the fear of other content creators who may feel pressured by these notions to notions. they get pressured by this notion of having to be this certain type of way or present their content in a certain type of way. Like I don't edit my videos really. I'm just gonna trim the first 10 seconds of this video because that's when I was prepping. But I'm not gonna jump cut and I'm not gonna, I don't know, do what else to it. But because this is a steady stream of consciousness, I don't want to interrupt it. So like people should, I think the problem with the platforms now is that they don't, all these platforms, they're enticing you to be fake and to make money and to do this and to that to get into the upper echelons of YouTube Hall of Fame, I guess, or a million subscribers or followers, whatever it may be. But it's taken away from people who've actually started off and who were brave to really like put themselves out there in this kind of way and not be afraid to be their nerdy, weird, kooky self. I mean, as long as you weren't hurting anybody, you could do whatever. And that's what's so beautiful about this whole social media world and the internet, honestly, all period. That's what's so beautiful about it, is that this ability that we can really be our true selves and we can learn from each other and we can eliminate this fear of the other as well. Xenophobia can just go away if we just really learn how to use the internet properly. Like, honestly. But this villain we're facing is really driving up the fear, and it impedes us from progressing, from evolving into better people, because the poison that was on cable TV is seeping into the internet, and it's so much easier to spread fear through the internet as well, obviously. So it's much easier to spread anything through the internet. So but it's way hard to get all the bad stuff travels quickly. Fear goes through your body like that, but joy is a feeling that has to blossom and grow throughout your body. That's the difference, right? And depression can come on in a storm. Rage can come down on you like a volcano eruption, but joy is like when it's like an emotion that has to really grow in you and to really overpower the other emotions, honestly. Not even overpower the other emotions. I think it's just keeping things in control. But bravery is not like absence of fear either, because there's plenty of people who say I'm still afraid when I go on stage, whatever, but it's being brave enough to do it, because it's the intention is beyond the fear. So, but also in fear, there's a lot of different kinds of fears. I'm just rambling off right now. I was originally going to make to a multi-part video, but I think I can do this all in one sitting. Who knows? We'll see. But one thing about fear of ourselves in this world and everything like that, one big thing is a fear of love. And love is like this scary word. And love is a basis for a lot of horror movies as well. Like rom-coms gone wrong in some cases. But not being afraid of love is something really hard to do these days, that's for sure. Because, like, depending on how you grew up, love wasn't taught to you in a way that, it just wasn't taught to you properly. Maybe you observe it somewhere else, or, even we see it in our parents, but we don't understand what's happening. Like, we just think love is so easy because as kids, we just love our parents, I suppose. They're good to you. But like, if we don't understand what love is, like, at its, like, as a, like, an entity, it can warp the way you form relationships, and then it makes you afraid to be in love with someone because it's like, I don't know what I'm doing kind of thing. And even though it's romantic movies are like, oh, I don't know, we don't know what we're doing, but we're in love kind of thing. It's really scary to take on love in that kind of way, and to really fearlessly fall into it and rely on each other. And that's why I think that's why a lot of people are afraid of marriage, because it's just what marriage entails. I'm offline. What's my internet? That's crazy. But yeah, so people are afraid of getting committed with each other and staying together, because especially our generation, we've seen so many divorces, people splitting up, and the generation before us saw their parents stick it out in horrible marriages, and before that it was like, if you didn't stick it out together, everyone died. So I don't know if we've ever had this good we now have the chance to really find like our true partners and things like that, but we're still dealing with this DNA, or this fear in our DNA about finding the true lover for us, and not being afraid to really believe in love as well. Like, for me, like, saying like too many times already, but I've been trying to understand this feeling of love for a long time, because I didn't grow up in a household that taught me love, basically. So I've been trying to learn it on my own, and it's been a saga, that's for sure. And through this marriage, like, I really understand what it means to be like in love with someone and devoted to them, and being like, unafraid to be in love and be proud of it as well. That's one thing, being proud of it too, because you can get shamed for being happy in a partnership nowadays, it seems. At least in a heterosexual one. Gosh, we're so white picket fence at this point. I think one of my biggest fears, I guess also another big thing about being in love, is like the fear of betrayal. So like, that's a huge thing for me, is being betrayed. And like, like, I feel like we're operating on this promise to each other to not only take care of one another, but also our family. And it's what marriage all entails, is this grand adventure of our lives. And it's an adventure every day. And you gotta be fearless to, or not totally fearless, but you gotta be brave to, go on a grand adventure like this, with another person for who knows how long, however long we live. Or, God forbid, divorce, I guess. But, hopefully if we do ever do that, it'll be like for a good reason. That's what I'm hoping, at least. So, like, not that we have to would have to get divorced, but I'm not afraid of, I've transcended this fear of losing people as well. But this is me personally anyway. But I feel like if we're really like in love with each other, they say if you love someone, you should be able to let them go. And that's true, because for some people, at a certain point you drift apart, or your soul journey has to move on to something else, maybe, and maybe it's not together anymore. It does happen, that is true. But I think we're more wired to be monogamous with each other, that's for sure. Yeah. But I don't know, maybe for some people their soul journey might be different, who knows. But we are definitely meant to be partnered with someone in some kind of way. And you can't be afraid of that. It's trusting totally is a brave undertaking, because you're trusting another person. And for me, like how I'm able to even cope with that, trusting a whole nother person, is that like I place it in the hands of God, honestly, or in the hands of the universe. But it's God, I mean, the ultimate creator. So I place it in the hands of, I trust that you won't do me wrong out of spite or something like that, because I've placed my life is in God's hands. So our lives together are in God's hands. And if I trust you and you trust me, then, we can hold each other's hands while we're in God's hands. I don't know, it's complicated. It's weird to explain it, because I've never done it before. But understanding that is like, I guess if you understand it, you know what I mean. And how real that is, like staying true to each other, like, and not even, it's just, I mean this like spiritually, emotionally, and not only physically, it's a whole, okay, it's a whole adventure that we're on together. And we can't be afraid of allowing each other space to grow either, because there's fears of abandonment and fears of losing someone. So people cling when they don't want to lose someone. They're too afraid to be alone, but yet sometimes people are afraid of commitment at the same time. So it doesn't really work. Any fear doesn't work out with anything, basically, because when you have one fear, it breeds all the other ones as well, because it just shakes through your whole system and psyche. But like the fear of abandonment, fear of commitments, and fear of trust, it keeps you from having like a truly loving relationship, because the fear will always get in the way of the love, honestly. Like even now I still struggle with my own personal fears of the past, coming up and, attacking me out of nowhere. Just because it's happened to me before in my life so many times at this point, I can't shake it. But at the same time, I have to be brave in that face of it and be like, no, I have to believe, not even just believe, it's like I have to like, it's my willpower saying like, this is not going to happen in my life again. And because I said it's not going to happen in my life again, I'm going to make sure it's not going to happen in my life again. That's me standing in the face of this monster, or I don't know, I guess I can say, like, this demon that's chasing my life down. You know, I have to stop and say, this is not going to be in my life anymore. And I went through a whole process of, you know, really exercising that. And, but it's not an aspect that's fully healed quite yet, because I have other things that are connected to it. But that's where it comes. I know where it's coming from, and because I know where it's coming from, I can stand here and be like, I'm blocking it out, or I'm not going to allow it to corrupt the feelings, the good feelings that I have that are genuine, because it's not because the fear, like, fear is unique. That it's real, but it's not real. It's a ghost, it's a specter of something that could happen, and you know, it might happen as well. That's what's scary about it, that it might happen. You know, it might slip past you and slip into reality. But that's why we can't think about our fears, because we don't want them to slip into reality. We don't want to give it enough power to come into reality either. We have to put our bravery first, put our courage first. And then when you block the fear from coming in anymore, all the love just brings up out of nowhere, honestly. Like, all the joy and stuff, it just comes up, and you realize, like, it's like anyone who's read my blog, hopefully, if you've been on my blog, it's like, I've been writing about chakra healing, and I did a heart chakra meditation, and I saw this image of a deer, like a fawn, in a meadow by itself, and like what that represents to me is allowing my very vulnerable self out in the open and to share my love. But I'm very much afraid of being attacked at the same time. Even though I know I'm in this safe bubble, you know, anyone could still come into my space and attack me, you know, come to my energy field, you know, send someone after me, you know, any of those things. So, and I mean this metaphorically, of course, but it's just a sense of, you know, like, how can I be comfortable being safe with my true self exposed, my most vulnerable spot exposed? Because I'm a very sensitive person, and I do have a lot of love to share. I do have a lot of love to give, and I want to, and a lot of ideas as well, because my ideas are formed out of my love. So my ideas are a part of my love, so it's part of sharing it. And I don't want to be shied away all the time. I actually want to, like, I do have this desire to, like, get my ideas out and share my love and everything, but it is difficult because of the fear of being attacked for my ideas, for my thoughts, you know, for my true self. Yeah. And it's like, it's funny I say fear of being attacked or something like that, and it's attached to this fear of death as well that people have. And it goes along with I've always been in God's hands, so I've never really been afraid of death. And, like, I've been through enough in my life that if death was going to get me, it would have got me by now. So I'm not afraid of death anymore. And plus, like, once I realized that, like, I'm a spiritual being as well, it's like, death doesn't you don't really die. So when you know you're not going to die, but that's a whole nother lecture. But death is just a passing on, right? From we're spirits, we're embodied spirits, and like we're on a journey, on a cycle in our souls to leave this realm and to ascend. So I think when I think about it that way, the idea of death just disappears, honestly, because I just know that this is a vessel that I'm working in, that I have something to work out with this and with others, and we're all in this together. We all have our, we have a story about that we're working out, and it needs to be worked out. But it's like the same thing. It's the fear of, realizing our truth as well, because death is true. As anything, is everyone dies. So obviously, what's the point of being afraid of it? I mean, the only thing to be afraid of is like, if you're afraid of death, it's like, I don't know, like live more carefully, I guess. And you won't meet your untimely demise. But it's like worrying. It's like that self-fulfilling idea. It's like if you worry about it too much, it'll get to you. Like you summon it. Like you summon the fear into your life. Or you're so worked up in a panic, you accidentally do something to yourself. I mean, you do only live this life once, So we should live our lives to the fullest with no fear, because, like, if you know that you're acting out something, that your body is trying to act out something that your spirit is activating. So it's like once you get that in sync, you will actively work on your life, and then when you die, you can move on peacefully to your next life, whatever it may be. I mean, hopefully, if you've worked on your life good, you can go on to a better life. But there's always time to work that out, right? But I also want to talk about with the fear of death, it is, I just never really had it, like, death isn't evil, death isn't bad. I mean, it's just a part of life, just like birth is a part of life. And I don't think we should be afraid of death. I think we should allow people to, like the idea of veterinarians putting down a dog, putting down animals, whatever. I mean, I get, like, it's the humane thing to do when, especially when it's, there's all the whole logistics of all these stray animals and everything like that. But, like, if, like, for my dog specifically, like, say, like, if you had your dog, like, my good friend, she just lost her dog. And she had that dog, oh my gosh, what is he, 16? 15 or 16. Great dog. And he passed at home in her arms. And I know it's traumatizing, but if she took him to the hospital, they would have tried to put him down anyway. And she would have had to make a tougher decision. And, like, honestly, it's sad, but it's like, it's beautiful at the same time. Like the Pieta. Like, I'm just going to keep talking about that sculpture, because I love that. It speaks to me. But, like, instead of, I don't know, it just feels like it's a more natural way to die in the arms of someone you love. It makes you smile. Like, it's much more beautiful that way than to be put down by chemicals in some kind of way. I mean, like lethal injection for your pet that you love. Like, no. I mean, if I had I mean, if I was ill in that way, I think I would probably prefer to, live out my days and not be put out down by opiates or whatever like that. Nah. It probably wouldn't hurt that bad. I don't know, what would the painkillers do? It wouldn't stop the dying, right? So, and I have a friend who has this really terrible autoimmune disease, and she just lives her life to the fullest as well, even though, she may not have a long lifespan depending on how this disease develops in her life. And I'm really praying that it heals, and like she can be healed, I believe. The body can really overcome once it knows how to overcome it. But like even with hers, like when I first read her cards, the death card popped out. I was like, oh man. But it's that she's in a battle with death in a way, and let's see if she can defeat it. That's the real thing. But she's not. But she can't be afraid of it at the same time. Maybe she doesn't fear it either in a way, because she knows what is in her life and going on in her life, and maybe that makes her able to stand in the face of it a bit more easier. I don't know. That's just my perspective. I never asked her about it. I will. But for me, that's how I would view it, because I've seen a lot of death in life at this point now, and it's just a process of life. It keeps happening. We see it all the time. It's no surprise that people die when they get sick or they get hit by cars. All this kind of stuff happening. When people take stupid risks and they, get themselves killed. The Darwin Awards, all that kind of stuff. It just happens. We can reduce it a lot more, but that's a whole nother story. But if people were really, really afraid of it, they wouldn't do some of the things that they do. And one of them is give up their rights to the freaking government. Come on now. Like, are you guys really so afraid that you're going to get hurt that you got to give up all your little rights to the government so you can feel safe and secure? It's like, and it doesn't even make you more safe and secure. It actually gives you more fear. It perpetuates the problem, actually. Oh, goodness. It's like we have to be brave instead of, like, worrying about what's going to happen next all the time. It's like you shouldn't worry about what's going to happen next. You just set your intentions and manifest what you want to happen in the world. And you apply your willpower where it needs to be. Not cower in fear of the world around you and letting fate just do its thing to you. And just wait for the demons to come knock down your door. That's not the move. It's not a good move at all. So, since I'm winding down a little bit, let me pull out my cards. The Tarot de Must. I've been wanting to learn French for the longest too, anyway. But fear in this world and our emotionals. Not emotional, but relationship problems. The lovers. Our decisions. Being afraid of making decisions. I can see that, That's also another thing about love. Choosing a lover. And also it's the fear of like missing out on love as well, because people get afraid to get committed and get devoted in the hopes of something, afraid that something better might come along, and then you gotta and then you gotta have this scenario where, oh, I'm in love with one person, I'm in love with another person, and in reality, it doesn't have to be like that. It's like, I think we have a couple of perfect matches out there in the world, but I don't think we have to be afraid, or that we don't have to be that fearful about it, because if you got what you got in front of you, in a way, and like like I was saying earlier, like if you love someone, let them go, and you're able to let them go, then yeah, if you found your first perfect match and you come across your second perfect match, I mean, you can probably move it along pretty easily. But I mean, it would just be sad for the other person if they didn't conveniently meet their perfect match as well at the same time as you. But yeah, that's trusting. I believe in love, and I believe like love is, it's a lot of work. And it's the Four of Wands. Yeah. But yeah, love is a lot of work, and I've told my husband several times, like, I don't think I'm going to leave you for anybody else anyways, even because, like, I just don't want to I don't want to spend another 10 years building a relationship with someone. But I don't know, who knows? Unless it was, like, super worth it. I doubt it. Ooh. Oh, right. The Lovers popped up again, of course. And Justice. Thinking about love, of course, under Libra full moon. Just also about love is like, and the fear of relationships and marriage and all this kind of stuff, and death in life. Is people are afraid to get committed, get married, and have kids, and they have to be all like, oh, if I bring kids into this cruel world or whatever, like that. And it's like, be as fearless as your mother, as all our mothers, like our mothers, our ancestors, they didn't know what it's going to be like in the future. They didn't know that we were going to have vaccinations now and all this kind of stuff, because they just had their kids and they raised them as best they could and sent them out in the world in the hopes that they will continue on living and continue passing down their DNA, from the very first mitosis split. It's like the bravery of our parents to stand in the fear of the world to help us become good people is like no other, honestly. Like, I can't think of something more scarier in my life, honestly, than raising my children in this current world, because I don't know what it's going to be like in 10 years when my son graduates high school and my daughter's growing up, in a new culture. So, but I'm still, even though there's this kind of like worrisome, this little inkling of fear about what the future is going to look like, I still have to be brave in this moment and raise my kids to be brave people, so they're able to stand in the face of whatever is facing them in the future. Because like, courage is like one of the most important things you need in this life, obviously. Because you have no courage to do anything, how can you stand up to do anything for yourself or for anybody else? How can you be brave enough to love? How can you be brave enough to live if it's not instilled in you at a young age to really consider that? And some people are born more brave than other, I'm sure, but that can be broken down very easily if you're not prepared for what the world is about to dish out to you when you get old enough. And that's what we see now in these college students, that's for sure, or recent string of college students who have no idea how the world works. Or like, we see it in how these isms get formed, racisms and sexisms and all that kind of stuff. And people being too afraid to like, you know, really look at the situation. Like, there's so much past feelings that are left over still, and it still generates this fear in communities that doesn't need to exist anymore. And the fear that was in the old times is embedded into our DNA, and now, and then people don't have an understanding their DNA, of course, and or rather the general public doesn't understand how DNA activates. So it's this internal fear that's embedded in us that gets triggered randomly, and we don't know why it gets triggered, or like it can make you act a certain way. It can affect your psychology, and you don't know why you don't know what is affecting your psychology because you never faced your fears. And when you face your fears, you realize how much of your perspective has been so flawed. And also, and then it activates the rest. Then it activates the positive side of your DNA once you realize that you're not in fear anymore. Like, it's been talked about before, like, anxiety is like, you know, if your body thinks it's in a constant state of like fight or flight, you know, a state of fear, you know, like, don't let it consume you. Like, it can literally consume you. Like, fear is like the driver for, you know, suicides as well, because people are afraid of living, and they're afraid of their life, or they're afraid of being accountable and their responsibilities, and, you know, afraid that, you know, that their life is over. We don't have, especially in the Black community, like, but especially in the Black community, we don't have this real strong concept about being about life, about the length of life, because we have this terrible history to us. Interesting. But fear in these times, fear these days is just warping our psychologies for the negative, and we just really have to, as a collective, we just have to like bring ourselves back into it, bring ourselves back to like reality, and like really shake off this fear, because like if we just let it consume our culture, it's just going to destroy everything, obviously, because it gets in the way of everything. It fears like the first, you know, like being in a state of fear is just so like impactful, negatively impactful on our health and our minds, and it just, we've seen what's going on, and it's time to really take a step back and just let it slide off of us and realize that like there's really, I'm not saying that there's nothing to be afraid of, especially with this virus. I'm not really sure what the virus might be even about, but it's definitely like a time to like really, especially since most of us are in the house, to like really look at what we're afraid of and how can we start being more brave and just being more brave in all aspects of our lives, because it's not about, like, I think that's the most important first step in anything, is to be brave. And once you have that, you can like take on anything. You can build on it. You can work it out. It's a muscle that you can work out for sure. And it will definitely like bring like so much good things to your life. And with bravery comes, you know, patience as well, because you learn how to wait out these issues that you think are bothering you, but you don't realize it's not that big. It's not a big problem if you just take a breath and assess your surroundings and really take stock of what's really happening around you and what do you really have to be afraid of, honestly. Because what you're really afraid of is most likely in your mind, and if what you're afraid of is not just in your mind and it's are surrounding you, that's something you have to do about your environment, obviously. And you know, what can you do in your own environment to even like bring it to a better place? Ooh. Oh man. But yeah, I think that's all I'm going to share about fear right now. And I'll see you guys in another video or my blog post.